is Juno, and this happened to me when I was 13. I lived in a rural town in Utah, and I had never really gone outside of my town at that age. So you had to get creative with how you spent your time, trying not to die of the boredom that was always around. People in my town spent their time however they needed to fill that empty void of boredom, and how they chose to do it was up to them. That could range from banging their head on a tree or going out and getting blackout drunk and pissing yourself in a bar to tempting fate with bulls or other livestock. So like I said, you had to get creative, and my friend group did just that. We were always into the occult and into the paranormal, and we were always in search for some evidence that ghosts existed. I guess I should introduce him now. There was Aaron. He was more into this than any of us were, and as such, he was more knowledgeable about the stuff. He took it super seriously. He was, effectively, leading the charge into our paranormal hunts. Then there was Manny. He was about as sharp as a cue ball, but we liked him because we thought he was funny. At least to a bunch of 13-year-olds who thought saying cock out loud was funny. Then there was Sophia. She was a hardcore skeptic. She was constantly butting heads with Aaron on what noise might have been what, from spirit boxes or from out there in the woods and such. Kinda like a sanity check for all of us. The same can be said about Thomas. He was always a level-headed kind of guy. Even at our age, he seemed to have all his ducks in a row. Never have I ever heard him yell or scream unless he was laughing with us. Then there was me. I didn't believe in anything after death until what I'm about to tell you happened. It was the last day before spring break officially started, and again, we didn't know how we were going to spend our spring break, and if it was anything like last time, then I would have just opted to stay home. Boring is the word I'm looking for. As I thought that was the case, the last bell of the day rang, meaning that it was spring break. As I and Manny made our way to our bikes, Aaron came up to me and Manny. He was ecstatic about a place he had heard about, some old ruins from the 1800s, located just on the border of our town, in a forested area, about roughly 5 or 6 miles relative to where we all lived. He said he wanted to do a ghost hunt there, and knowing I had nothing better to do for spring break, and this would most likely be the most interesting thing to happen, I accepted, and so did Manny. Pretty soon later that night, he got the whole group on board, even Sophia, who was still eager to prove that there was no such thing as ghosts. The next day, we all met up on our bikes and brought all we thought we would need: flashlights, new batteries, Aaron's ghost equipment, a compass, snacks, and a Ouija board. The Ouija board was Sophia's idea, and Aaron at first was against it, but Sophia insisted that if he was so confident that spirits existed, he would try it out at these ruins. Aaron, not wanting to be shown up, reluctantly allowed the Ouija board to come along. We made our way to the ruins pretty late, around 7 p.m. We got there within the same hour, with so minutes to spare until 8 p.m. We followed Aaron and the compass until we found it. The ruins. After exploring around for 15 minutes, and in Aaron's words, we were testing. We all gathered around in a hot spot according to Aaron, and he did his thing. You know, the typical, are you here? Give us a sign. Move this. Yada yada. After 10 minutes of this, Sophia got fed up and took out the Ouija board. She smirked and said, try this, to Aaron. Aaron gave her a look that said, I don't like this, and looked towards us to back him up on this. Before we could even decide on who to back up, Sophia shot up and said, I came all this way to use this stupid piece of junk, and you guys are being the biggest pussies about something that isn't even real. Looking back on it now, it was clear that she was baiting us, trying to rile us up, and we should have left the bait there, but there, we all felt insulted. And to our 13-year-old egos, we didn't want to get shown up, so reluctantly, we got set up. We set ourselves up in a circle. There was me, and to my right was Sophia, to her right was Manny, to his right was Aaron, and to Aaron's right was Thomas, effectively making a little circle. We each put 2 fingers on the planchette, while me and Manny held up the flashlights to see what we were doing. Thomas at this point looked uncomfortable. Itchy is the best way I can put it, but I guess the same can be said for everyone there. But nonetheless, we each took part in this so-called game. She asked if there were any spirits here in a mocking tone. Aaron still maintained his glare of disapproval. It wasn't even 5 seconds later when the planchette moved over to yes in almost an instant. Sophia at this point thought someone was moving the planchette, Yes, she was a skeptic, but she didn't stoop to the level of moving the planchette that some other douchebags do. After a moment, she called Aaron out for the suspicion, and Aaron told her in a very scared tone that it wasn't him. Sophia squinted her eyes at Aaron, not believing him. After a moment, she asked another question. Are you a good spirit? To which the planchette moved to yes. Without a moment's hesitation, Aaron asked, Who are you? The planchette stopped. It was in a blank space. After a couple of seconds of this, the planchette made an agonizingly slow crawl to no. Later, Aaron told us this was the worst answer we could ever get. Everyone was thoroughly freaked the fuck out at this point, except Sophia, who again called Aaron out for moving the planchette. Aaron argued back this time and defended himself, and Sophia let go of the planchette and threw the Ouija board somewhere past Aaron, trying to hit him. When she did that, three things happened at the same time. The sounds of the forest immediately stopped. No cicadas, no crickets, nothing. The lights me and Manny were holding up turned off, and to my left I heard a sound I will never forget coming from Thomas. It's like he was sucking in as much air as he could, making this horrible clicking sound with his throat. Me, Manny, Sophia, and Aaron were so focused on the board and this blow up, we didn't even notice Thomas. At this point it was pitch black without the fucking lights. All you could hear was Thomas making this horrible fucking sound, and it seemed to slowly get quieter. All the while me and Manny were putting in new batteries, fumbling in with the flashlights. Finally, after 30 seconds I got mine working again, and then it flicked on. And when it flicked on, I realized while the clicking was getting quieter, I saw Thomas floating 4 feet in the fucking air, looking down at us. His eyes were rolled into the back of his skull. At this moment it was quiet, all except his horrible fucking clicking sound. We all seemed to freeze as his head jerked to the left, as if he heard something we didn't, and very gently he floated deeper into the ruins. Sophia and Manny were crying at this point, holding each other. I wanted to cry as well. I was horrified. What the fuck was happening? Why was this happening? How was this happening? We were frozen, pissing ourselves, and watched as he disappeared into the darkness. We couldn't move. We were huddled together. We felt safer, but scared shitless nonetheless. It was Aaron that first broke out of this intense fear that froze us. He looked at me, and immediately me and him knew that all of us had to go for Thomas. We couldn't just fucking leave him. We made sure to stay together with Manny and Sophia, locking hands and not letting go no matter what. At this point, Manny called his brother. By some goddamn miracle, he had service, and he was practically begged his brother to come pick us up. Slowly, we searched for Thomas, going deeper and deeper, until we came across this room at the far end to the left of the main hall of the ruins. As we got closer, we heard crunching sounds, wet crunching sounds, and we braced ourselves for what we could face. On the ground was Thomas, facing away from us, hunched over. He was eating something. We got closer, not calling out to Thomas for some reason. I was the one in front since I had the flashlight, and it became disturbingly clear to me, to all of us, what he was eating. Rats. Biting their head off before chewing, making a horrible, crunching sound. I got closer, scared shitless, wanting this nightmare to be over. I reached out to touch Thomas on his shoulder as he was still crunching on this rat head. As I made contact, he stopped. Not a sound. Thomas? I whispered. A sickening thud of a rat corpse hitting the ground as he was still facing away from us. And then, as he was still facing away from us, a scream. One of pure agony from Thomas, so loud in this unnaturally quiet forest. It's as if he came to his senses as I touched him. Thomas, please, look at me, man. He turned to me with an agonizing slow shaking of his crimson-covered hands first, then his face. Now he was bleeding from his eyes and nose, not to mention he had chipped and broken his teeth from how hard he was chewing on the rat head. You know, is what I can make out he said through his crying. As soon as he saw his hands, he started to cry even more, in turn freaking us out more. We picked him up and made our way to a clearing near the main road and waited for Manny's older brother to pick us up. The whole ride to the hospital was a quiet one. Eerily quiet. Thomas was curled up into a ball, staring off into the back of Manny's seat. He didn't say anything. We didn't know what to do, so we just kind of held him. He didn't say anything, neither did we. Minnie's older brother didn't know what to make of it, but I'm pretty sure he was blazed out of his fucking mind, as Minnie had to practically beg him to come pick us up. We never told anyone what happened to us, what happened to Thomas. He never told anyone anything. Can't blame the guy. Realistically, what could he say? I almost don't believe it myself, but this was 10 years ago. I recently came home to visit, and all the memories came flooding back. I wouldn't have shared this story, and it would have stayed a bad memory in the back of my mind if it wasn't for what happened the first week that I was home. Mom and Dad were out having dinner, so it was just me in my room. I was watching some old show when I heard my name coming from downstairs.
Janelle.
The voice wasn't my mom's. It was too childish. Certainly not my dad, and I don't have any siblings, so at this point, I turn off the show and I perk up. 10 seconds later, Janelle. Right outside my bedroom door, and this time, I fucking recognized it right away. It was Thomas's voice. Right when we found him that night, all those years ago, right as that clicked, my door began to shake so hard I thought I was gonna bust off the damn hinges. All the while this yelling I could only describe as someone having an extreme fit of anger, mixed with some sort of sadness, pierced my ears and filled the room. I fell back startled. Janelle, 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 Janelle. And Thomas's voice mixed with something else. Never have I ever heard anything so fucking loud in my life, and then it stopped. I was frozen. Horrified like I was 13 again. I snapped out of it and futilely I barricaded my room, even though I knew that it would do little to stop what was on the other side of that door. I don't know how much time passed, but eventually my parents came home, and my mom, she found me curled up in a ball. She was confused, to say the least. I wanted so badly to tell her what happened, but I couldn't bring myself to. What would she think? Drugs? Mental illness? Opting for the easy way, I told her I thought someone broke into the house instead. She bought it, and so did my dad. It wasn't until I calmed down enough that she said, "Well, that's weird. I found this by your door when we came home. Is it yours?" In her hands, she held out that fucking planchette.